Okay.
I don't think they could.
Well, we'll start over. Well, good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order for the Economic Incentive Board, Wednesday, September 9th, 2020. If the clerk will please call the roll.
Justin Howell.
Here.
Vince Tyson.
Here.
Kevin Cass.
Present.
Raymond Mondragon.
Here.
Megan Paula.
Here.
Hoyt Pattison. J.D. Gutierrez.
Here.
Latrice Brooks.
Here.
Brett Johnson.
Here.
And Gail Tarson.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Our first item of business is the minutes of our December 11th, 2019 meeting. I know that we've had an interruption to our normal routine, but if anybody has any comments or questions regarding those minutes.
Move for approval.
We have a motion
A second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4 on the agenda is discussion and action regarding renewal of statistical data and website property database. Mr. Gentry.
Over the last few years, we've been probably doing it 5 years or so. Investing in a property database by GIS Planning, Zoom Prospector. And basically it provides data and access to commercial real estate to those looking to relocate or invest in our community. The renewal was up in June, and we had talked to them to extend it until we could get a meeting together to approve it. So right now we're operating a few months without any cost. And basically I'll show you, let me see if I can see this. I can just figure out how to. Basically, this is it's tied into the Chamber and CIDC website. You come into the site, it covers the Clovis, Portales, Curry, Roosevelt County area. It's our designated area. We have a live feed from the MLS system, from the Clovis, Portales MLS, and it picks up all of the commercial property that is listed in the real estate database, as well as properties that we add, or if anybody has individual properties, they can call and get a password, or we can add properties into the site. You can see the building that Chad Leidig owns, the 30,000 square foot building right here. That we added to the site because it wasn't listed. The industrial park we've added in there, in the call center. Then you'll see these other properties that are coming off of the database of the MLS system. And so if you're interested in a piece of property, you can click into it, and it'll come up with the aerial view, the satellite view, show you where the property is. It'll bring up the information about the property, and then obviously give you a contact to contact us at our office, and a lot of flyers and other information that any information that you might want to add to the site, as well as pictures and to marketing. So this is available, and we use it to help with our proposals that we put out. Then you can go in from this site. You can go in and look at anybody that's using the site can look at their labor force, demographics, consumer expenditures, and other data, and it can actually go in, select the data that they want, and then actually create a report and export that report into a PDF format for their use. And this is basically used for site consultants and others that are looking for sites that a lot of times they'll do a first look into where they might want to go. So they'll come out and see if they can find the data. If they can find the data, then we might get in the list of a prospective community for the project. So this is used by a lot of different communities. I know that Gallup, Patricia Lindstrom is using it, and others, and we feel like it's a good investment. It's not only for our use, it's for anybody's use, realtors or anybody else. We get a lot of calls, people that looking for even retail that is looking for data, and we direct them to this site or pull data from this site to give to them. We had a call last week from a lady that's wants to open a franchise business here, and we direct them to this information. So I think it's a good investment. It's $10,000. Last year, you authorized $9,000. It ended up being $9,500 last year, and we covered the $500 difference, but it is $10,000 this year to do it for a 12-month period. We're getting about 125 to 200 uses on the site a month. So that kind of gives you some information on where it's headed. I think we're seeing more and more traffic driven to it just because of COVID-19 and some of that. People are more in the office and doing searches. But with that, I would stand for any questions that you might have.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Chase, how many retail inquiries have we received on that site? Do you have that information?
Well, we don't necessarily, unless they call us, we don't necessarily know exactly who's searching. But in the last month, there's been 3 companies that have looked at, wanted information. We've directed them there.
And we spoke about this yesterday. It is used by site selectors, and of course, the question I had is how many views we've had, and you answered that, and I appreciate that. In your opinion, the $10,000 for a 12-month period, we've had views, but we would consider that, I guess, hunts, but no actual hits where we recruited anyone. In your opinion, is this a good investment for the city?
I think if you're gonna play the game and be in the game, you got to have the tools to be available to be in the game. Part of the certification process that we went through with the State Economic Development Department to be a certified economic development organization required us to have updated and consistent database. That's when we went to this system. And we, in the past, we've tried to operate our own systems that we just input the data and export the data. And realtors could tell you that, I mean, if you don't have somebody keeping up with it and removing them and putting them up, then it's hard to maintain. So with the MLS feed, it's 99% up to date. If one's sold, it's off there. If there's one that's added today, it'll be up there by tonight because it updates every night. So it's a one-stop shop opportunity to get information, as well as to some of the places that aren't listed through the real estate database. So I think that we're actually listed in the New Mexico Partnership website. They can go into their site and then get into ours and get into the data. So I think that's an advantage too. But I think we need the data to respond. So it's actually buying the data that we need and providing us an online service for people to use.
And I'm glad you mentioned the New Mexico Partnership. The New Mexico Partnership, Mr. Chairman, is the recruiting arm for the state of New Mexico, and they do look at with all the economic development organizations in the state and see what they have as far as data for their communities, so they can refer site selectors or potential companies to those areas. So thank you, Chase. Appreciate that.
And just something about the partnership. I was on their site yesterday, and they are having funding issues, obviously, with COVID-19.
Right.
And the data that they have available is very limited on communities. If you go into their site, there's a page for each county, but it's not a lot of detail that you might need if you were looking for a community. So I mean, this is one of the premier providers for economic development in the United States, and I think they're a good investment. It's not a huge investment to have it available.
There's just another tool in the toolbox.
Right.
So.
And it would also demonstrate easier to do business with us. And that's what businesses are going to be looking for too. When they want to go into a location, is how easy is it to do business with that community? And that's going to demonstrate that we're in today and easy to access information. So,
Chase, I have a question. I can't really see you, but
Okay.
go back to the screen where it said like there were demographics and labor force, and you were there previously.
Right here?
Yes. So my question and complaint with a lot of websites like this is, I understand that the MLS portion of it updates daily, but the labor force, the demographics, the consumer expenditures, is the information in those tabs current and accurate? Because I know sometimes you have these websites you go to and the information is so old that it's useless.
So they take, obviously you do census every 10 years, we're in the process right now. And then every year there's estimates that are given, that are provided. And so they all of the most up-to-date information that's provided from the U.S. Census and other data is tied into this system. I don't know how they do the estimates. I mean, you can pull census estimates at different times, but my understanding is this is the most current data that's available.
Click on that where it says living here. What shows up when you, up at the top?
That's our site.
Oh,
That's
so you maintain that?
yes.
Okay. And is all the information there? I'm assuming that's
Yes, so
accurate and current?
this is embedded in pulling off of the GIS planning system, and then this is the area that we maintain through the Chamber and CIDC website. So we have a combined website. It's integrated together, and so we have our section, and then the Chamber has their section, but it all operates as one unit.
Okay. So this $10,000 is just the commercial real estate?
Yes, just the GIS, yeah, just that,
Okay.
that interactive part of it.
Mr. Chairman? I'm just looking at your website, Chase, so where you go on the CIDC's website, there's a piece about the labor force. Is that part of their information?
So
Because the figures that are on there right now are from 2012, 2013 for the labor analysis and so on?
this page?
Yes.
Okay. So some of that is not interactive into it, but we can update that, yeah. So we can take modules out of the GIS piece and put them into interactive pieces into the website. That piece of it isn't interactive right now.
So when you were in the GIS system, though, I think there was also a workforce tab within that.
Yes. Get back to it. It also provides for overlays, like for zones and fiber and different things that you can add into that are part of this.
So did it update when we updated our uniform development ordinance as far as zones? The nomenclature?
It doesn't. I don't know that it has. We can give them your zoning, the zoning of the city, and they can map it into the system too. So here's the labor force report. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Yeah. So we can actually, we can actually go into and put these interactive modules into our website too, to where they're always updated with this, but that part of it is not.
So then are there two different sources of data? Like when you're on the CIDC website, does it say we have, X number of people available in the workforce, and then this GIS system says something different?
Right, that's what Claire was saying, that when we redid that piece. So this website was updated. We went through, had to do a modification last year, but they took the data off the old website, so that piece of it is not currently up to date. But when you go and run a report or do anything with this, it automatically updates to
So
that.
you're saying this system that we're approving right now is up to date, but the CIDC website is not up to date?
Not that part that Claire mentioned,
Okay.
this part right there. And that's one of the things that we had talked about. I know that there is some websites that are available that we may want to come back at some point and redo a website totally for economic development. I know that we had went out in March, or November of last year, I think it was, and looked at a system that Patty Lundstrom used in Gallup. And it's a large investment if the community wants to make it. It's about $20,000 a year, but it's a fully interactive economic development website. Now, GIS planning isn't a part of it, but they're a partner in it. So we can get discounted rates from GIS planning if we decide to go with a website, a premier economic development website. We have not had the funding to spend $20,000 a year maintaining an economic development website, but it may be something we want to consider in the future.
Well, who maintains the CIDC website?
So we try to do most of it inside of our Crow with our, what's it called? RC Web Design has also a part of helping us do that.
So can we not pull the current figures off of this website and put them on the CIDC website? Yeah,
it can be. It actually can be integrated into the page too. It just is not that way right now.
I'm just thinking that everything on this GIS website needs to match the CIDC website. Otherwise, we look like we don't know one end from another.
And is there a way, I guess, a simple way just to link the two? So when you went to labor force under your tabs, it just bring up this labor force. That way we potentially wouldn't have that.
Yeah, it's called widget integration, and so yeah, that's there.
One of the things, Mr. Chairman, is the Department of Workforce Solutions, in fact, I got it yesterday, they put out a monthly labor market analysis for the state. I think you've seen that report. And it's a lot of what Chase is showing right now, pie charts like that, that shows the different jobs. And then it shows how many jobs have been created, how many people have lost jobs, and so forth. It's a very good analysis of job impacts, especially now with the COVID. But that site could probably be put on as an integration, as Chase said. It's up to date. It's dated. It's updated monthly.
Well, it sounds like the site itself provides useful information and is current. It's a matter of making sure that we don't have duplication and misinformation across the two various platforms within the CIDC's website itself.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval that we continue this.
For the full 10,000?
Yes.
And that's the request, is 10,000?
Yes, sir.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next item, which is discussion and action regarding Xenia LLC project. Mr. Gentry.
Yes, we've been working, Senator Sawyer, the SBDC, and myself have been working with Dinesh and Paren Kumar, the owners and developers of the new hotel north of Clovis. That'll be a dual brand hotel. And we're looking at potential of an industrial revenue bond for that project to help them complete that project on time. And I know they're on the phone, they're on the video, and I thought they might want to introduce themselves and maybe just give a little history of the hotel and what it's going to be.
Sure. So my name is Parveen Kumar, and I'm here with Dinesh. We're developing a... Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm trying to just turn off my proof. There we go, so y'all can see.
Getting a little bit of feedback. There we go.
So we're developing a Hilton branded one hotel with two brands in the same building. It's 149 rooms. It will employ about 25 to 30 permanent residents in Hilton. Most of them from the lower income community, with a handful maybe from the qualified community. With COVID, we're also facing a lot of challenges getting the project completed as planned, and the IRB would definitely help us complete that as planned. And the hotel itself is going to be a great support to Cannon Air Force Base. because a portion of it has extended stay, where when people are moving in and out, it'll be a good extended term stays. Thank you.
So the new hotel is one of, I think, one of 10 in the United States that has a dual brand concept that Perrin talked about. They're looking at 28 employees at the facility. And one thing that we're excited about is one of the things Committee of 50 has been working on for the last year and a half has been extended stay opportunities for Cannon folks that the commander of the base had come to the Committee of 50 and said, hey, we need places for people to stay temporarily. And so James Burns took on the initiative, has been working with private owners or requesting people that might set up apartments or set up homes that they could rent for 6 months or 3 to 6 months, 8 months. And so that's been an initiative of this. And I think this hotel fits right in with that. With her, I think there's like 72 of the extended stay rooms on that facility and that property. I know that the Kumars have been concerned with COVID-19. I know Terry Blosky's here with the Bank of Clovis that financed this project also, but obviously they've started construction right before COVID-19 hit. COVID-19 hit, and there was some concern about the project. I know that Mrs. Kumar had talked about that they had looked at potentially even removing one of the floors off the hotel to cut cost in the project, and Hilton hadn't given them the answer on that. I wouldn't allow them to do it, I guess. And so we were looking, Sandra and I were looking for incentives that how we could help to make sure that this project is successful. And the only thing that we could find that was viable was the industrial revenue bond on a local level. And so they worked with Sandra and submitted the application that you have in front of you. And so we, I'll stand for any questions that you might have on that.
Thank you, and I do have a couple of questions. I noticed that the total project cost is $18 million approximately, and they've already received financing through the Bank of Clovis as well as through the USDA. And so with the proposed $18 million IRB, are they looking to refinance what they've already done? I mean, obviously they're not going to need the full $18 million.
So an industrial revenue bond is a tax exemption tool.
Correct.
It's not really a financing tool. So it's the bond. The name of the bond really is not.
So they're not.
It's not. There's no risk to the city. The city has no money in it. It takes that property and puts it into the name of the city of Clovis under a lease agreement, and then under that lease agreement, as long as those bonds are outstanding, that property is exempt from property tax. And so it's a matter of USDA and the Bank of Clovis signing off on the IRB, which they fund the project and they still hold the loans that they've got.
Okay, and so then also I know that when I was reading their application that their pro forma was based off of 60% occupancy, and one of the reasons for looking for the IRB was due to COVID, and I understand obviously when the application was initially discussed and submitted, our occupancy rates were below that 60% mark that they were allowed to due to the public health order. Currently they're at 75%. So are they still have the same amount of concerns that they did previously with the capability of being able to meet that 60% occupancy load?
Perrin, I'll have to let you answer that one. You're saying if...
Correct. So
maybe, Perrin, you could go over your concerns and how that your need for that, for the bond.
It's a long-term hospitality effect is kind of severe. It may take like 5 years to recover the hospitality market.
So basically, so the COVID has hit us with a long-term recovery, just like any tourism impacted industries. And so the IRB would provide a longer-term solution and guidance, like for the hotel to ramp up and be successful.
So I was reading an article, on that note, I was reading an article in Texas on the Dallas newspaper talking about the Texas Hotel Association, talking about they're looking at 2024 before they think they're even begin for the recovery of hotels. And so, I mean, I think it's a long-term impact that's happened. I mean, obviously, everybody's been hit, especially in the tourism industry. And I think this came up because of concerns from Bank of Clovis and others to make sure that the project is viable, that they can cash flow, and that the project is successful. And so that's what we were trying to do, is find a way to bridge the gap and provide something that we could help with. And this was the only opportunity that was available under the local and scenic packages that we have.
And then, I'm trying to find here, they had a proposed impacts.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
how long is this IRB last? Is it 20 years? What's the time on it?
So under the guidelines and the policies, we have the incentive package that offers a 20-year industrial revenue bond, 100% abatement with a 35% payment in lieu of taxes. So the standard is the 20 years, and that's what they've requested.
And so, in their fiscal impact overview, they break it out over 10 years versus the 20 years. Was that just a look at, that was not considering the industrial revenue bond?
It does consider industrial revenue bond. The systems, this is done with the state, and they typically do a 10-year, based upon statute and their policies, they do a 10-year analysis on a project. So what the statute says is that you have to show your cost benefit and make sure that it's more than what you're giving. And so this complies with that, and that's the way the standard for the state is set up.
So one question I guess regarding that is with Clovis Public Schools, where it says that they have no costs and no benefits to this, but yet they do receive property taxes. So if we're abating property taxes, wouldn't that have an impact as well as CCC, et cetera?
My understanding, I would have to ask the person that ran this. I think part of it is on the model. It depends on the size of the project and if you're going to bring new people in or not. And so it's not only, this doesn't only look at just what's going on with the IRB directly. It looks at the impact of more people coming in or leaving or staying, or if there's going to be cost to the schools and all of that. And based upon my times we've looked at this before, I think it's because it's a low number of employees. It's not showing up in the model the way it's set up.
So is there an estimated cost and loss of potential gross receipts tax or in property tax?
So that was in your email that you got. In the email that was sent, it talks about the project will receive approximately $75,000 a year abatement, adding up to about $1.5 million over 20 years, and $180,000 furniture and fixture compensating tax forgiveness for the project. And so in that way, we figured we do an impact analysis, a tax analysis on it. The payment in lieu of tax would be right around $40,500, depending, obviously subject to negotiation with the IRB subcommittee as set up in the policies, which would be chaired by the mayor, and Brett's on it, and Mrs. Casals, Commissioner Casals, and others, you and me, and the attorney on there is ex officio.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, so are we putting a 20-year Band-Aid on a potential problem that may only last another year? I mean, I don't know. Is there not something that we can do to help them during the construction? But for 20 years, really? That's a long time, $75,000 a year for a problem that's just happening right now. Is there a shorter time period that we could help these guys with? Or is 20 years the...
Well, I guess that we comply with the policies that are established, and so this proposal is based on the established policies that were set up by the City Commission. It does say in there that you guys can offer an alternative. The way I read it, it locks in the IRB subcommittee to work within those guidelines, but this board could suggest something outside that. But it needs to, it looks like it needs to go to the IRB subcommittee and then come back and then a decision be made on that based upon the way the policies are set up.
And I do think that there is the capability to have a reduced term on it.
You've also got to remember, I mean, that you're not seeing all the cost in this. They're going to spend probably $40,000 to $60,000 to get the bond issued, because they're going to pay for the city's attorneys, they're going to pay for their attorneys, and so it's not a cheap process to make the thing happen. So that's not figured into income, not very valuable at that point. And I think that this is a project we've never done through an IRB, I think, situation, what I heard. But it's legal. I mean, we've checked with the council that we use, Sutton, Thayer, and Brown, and they've confirmed that it has been done in Albuquerque and other communities, and that it is legal to do. I think it fits within our guidelines. I think the only concern that our executive committee had is that it might create unfair competition potentially with other properties that are in town. Was the only recommendation they had. But as far as the financing and the project success, there was no concerns on that expressed.
Comments?
Mr. Chairman? Chase, on the email dated September the 2nd, 2002 that you send out with the analysis information, on page 2, you end the letter with CIDC Executive Committee comments. The CIDC Executive Committee would like to express its concern that by using the IRB for the new hotel under construction, the IRB could create a conflict or create an unfair advantage with an existing enterprise in the community. As you stated just a few minutes ago, this is the first IRB for a hotel in the city of Clovis, as you stated as well. Are we setting precedent for any future hotels that might want IRBs from the city of Clovis?
I think anybody has the option to apply for any incentive that is offered, and then it's up to you as a board to deny or approve that application. It's not our role to make those decisions. We only provide recommendations on what we see and what's going on. I don't think there was no express that it's not a good project we should support it. The only concern they had was that if we do set a precedence, although we're looking at things that might do that in the future anyway. So
there are all kinds of readjustments to regulations and policies being done now with the COVID-19 issue happening here. But also on page 19 of the City of Clovis IRB process guidelines, on page 19, as you referred in an email earlier, there were 7 qualifying test criterias, and it's a pass and fail, and all 7 of them passed. Was that by the committee, established by the committee?
this was done through staff at our office, yes.
Oh, okay.
And
The other question I have is on the PILT. payment in lieu of taxes. If this is approved through a recommendation by this board and eventually approved by the city commission, I would like to include the city commission consider the PILT go back to the Economic Incentive Board or the EdTab or the Economic Development Fund. Could that be done?
That's his decision.
Up to the mayor
Under
and
the
the city
policies, it
commission?
falls, the mayor makes the recommendation to the city commission.
I would like that to be considered, that the PILT go back to the Economic Development Fund.
Payment in lieu of tax.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just to understand what Raymond asked and just to understand the process. My understanding is this is a request to abate the taxes. But the term industrial revenue bond is part of the process, and not being very well educated in the process. An industrial revenue bond to me sounds like a bond, like a loan. Somebody's going out and getting a loan, but it sounds like we're only suggesting to abate the taxes. So can you help me understand that, number one? And number two, if the city is going to abate the taxes, why would the payment in lieu of taxes go into a specific fund like economic development and not go back to the city, as to at least make up for part of the abatement that they're suggesting? So I'm just trying to understand Mr. Mondragon's suggestion to take the payment in lieu of taxes and move it to a specific part rather than going to the city.
So the industrial revenue bond is a tax abatement process that was developed probably in the 60s, I think, before we had LEDA and all of those kind of things, to allow for the only way you can abate tax in the state of New Mexico is take the property in the name of the city or the county or some other entity that's public entity, which gives it zero tax. And so it was named industrial revenue bonds for some reason. You can have self-funded, or you can go on the market with the IRB. We've never done an on-the-market IRB. We've always done a self-funded IRB, which means Bank of Clovis or USDA comes in and they provide the funds. As long as there's as long as there's only $1 outstanding, it's exempt, and that's all in the lease. So it's just it's basically a tax abatement incentive with a bunch of paperwork and a bunch of money going back and forth to make it happen. I mean, it's really, who really benefits is the IRB attorneys, I think. I mean, it's a 200 or 300, 400 page document that they all look the same, really. I mean, I've compared ones that we've done with 3 or 4 different attorneys, and they'll all change the words on some of them, but it basically, so for the city to be able to do that, typically there's a clawback provision in the document. There is, and then there's a payment in lieu of taxes. So when we did the Economic Incentive Board policies, we set up a standardized IRB that was available for projects, which is that one we mentioned, 20 years, 100% abatement, 35% payment in lieu of taxes. And then the policies say that the mayor will, the RB subcommittee will look it over, approve all the documents, and the mayor will, at the end of the day, he'll make a recommendation on where the taxes may go. So what that means, the city has no obligation to give anybody any of that payment in lieu of taxes. Historically, on small projects like this, the city's kept the money. So any money that's in this LEDA fund is the city's money. So Raymond's just suggesting that it be put into that fund to be used for economic development. But we've done projects like Southwest Cheese, where the last IRB that we did, we distributed money, or through the bond, we directed them to distribute money, some to the county, some to the city, some to the water fund, some to the road fund, some to the EIB fund. I mean, so when we worked on that with Mayor Lansford, we decided that the mayor should have that ability to say, because the Mayor Lansford felt like that we should be able to, especially on a big project, try to keep Clovis Community College a little bit, try to spread it around. And so that's why, even though the city has no obligation to do it, it may be advantageous, especially, this one's so little, it's probably not that big a deal, because when we did the transmission line for Great Farm, That whole payment in lieu of taxes goes into the Economic Development Fund, the LEDA fund. And so right now that's, I don't know, so it's, and did I answer the other, what was the other?
Well, just understanding the bond process and, you know.
So but it's basically just a tax exemption with a lot of legal work behind the scene to make it happen. So you've got to do an introduction of ordinance, which if we do this introduction of ordinance, basically it says the city's potentially willing to issue the industrial revenue bond, but it doesn't obligate the city to issue the bond. Then we'll go to reviewing documents, introduction of ordinance, and then you have 15 to 30 days to review it and do all this stuff in the adoption ordinance and issue the bond and all that. But it usually takes 60 to 90 days to get through all of the legal notices that have to go out and all of the pieces that have to, there's a lot of timing pieces. So once we get kind of a go-ahead on this introduction of ordinance, the bonding attorney for the Kumars will actually develop a calendar and issue that and present that calendar to the city's bond council, which is Daniel Alsop with a firm in Albuquerque, and they will be, along with Jared, be reviewing those documents and with the IRB subcommittee.
Okay, thank you.
That's probably too much more than you wanted to know, but
One more question, Mr. Chairman. It would require also a project participation agreement?
industrial revenue bond would not require a project participation agreement because we're not using any LEDA funds.
Right.
So it wouldn't activate that statute.
Okay.
So the hotel itself, I mean, there's already 4 stories up and it's being constructed and doesn't look like it's going to slow down. I mean, with even out, if they do not receive approval of this, I'm assuming the project's not stopping, it's continuing to go. Is that?
Terry says that's fine.
You may want to use the mic. You don't get off that easy.
Oh, come on. This one works good? I can go up here?
I don't. Is that turned on? Yeah, the podium's turned on.
Does that work? Podium's turned on?
Yeah, it's turned on.
Whichever you prefer.
You won't have to bend over.
Okay.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Terry Blushke. I'm with the Bank of Clovis. I have worked with Dan and Perrin since 1998. The first Hampton Inn that was built in Clovis, we financed for Dan and one of his groups. Was a very successful project. We have financed 10, roughly, throughout the state of New Mexico, typically in smaller communities. Deming, Lordsburg, Portales. They are extremely good operators. However, when COVID hit and the hospitality industry was, shall we say, affected severely, it created difficulties, unfortunately, with the project here that had already started. We had committed, they had committed. We have already made some changes. They've made some changes. They have sought additional injection from owners. There are other federal and state programs that are being pursued to try to reduce the overall loan burden. Obviously, one of the things that was mentioned briefly is one of the ideas was to cut a 4th floor off because that would have made it closer to a 100-room facility, 104-room facility, which to get to the 60 to 70% break even is a whole lot easier on 104 rooms than it is 148 rooms. So there has been a lot of time and energy and effort put into the overall thought process. I don't know if any of you have traveled lately during this COVID-19, but I had the opportunity to do that. The Dallas-Fort Worth Airport that used to be hustling and bustling is 50% capacity itself. Hotels around the United States, there is it's called a STAR report. It's put together by Smith Travel Research. The last that I've heard from them, and I haven't checked that in the last month or so, but in what they call their primary markets, which are the New York cities, the Daytona Beach, Floridas, the Dallas areas, they are beginning to get a little bit more, Brett, you mentioned that, 75% occupancy is what's allowed now in the state. Well, just because it's allowed doesn't mean that there are enough travelers to fill those. And nationwide, what we're finding is that over like spring break weekend and whatnot, that the Daytona Beach area hit 80% to 85% occupancy in certain areas. But overall, the occupancy rates are still below 40% nationwide. Now, they are coming back slowly. We don't know. The other thing that we don't know in this is if there is another round of COVID in the winter, because originally the idea was that it was maybe going to be a winter type of a flu, cold season, and COVID season. That obviously hasn't been the case. As we are all aware from various states and reports that we see, is that governors tend to change their minds about what restrictions should or should not be. All of that to say, yes, it is hopefully a temporary situation, but the fact of the matter is nobody knows for sure. And so the idea is how do we best prepare going forward for this particular project, setting a precedent. Someone asked that question. Yes, it may set a precedent, but when you look at the overall project, when you look at the list of 6 investors in this project, 3 of them are, let's call them Clovis-ites. They have other businesses in town. They generate other revenue through their businesses in town. They have bought houses in town. They have children who've gone to our schools, the whole 9 yards, that another project may not have. The other thing that another project may not have is this particular event that has gone on the last few months, as we commonly call COVID. So there are a lot of let's call them extenuating circumstances, in our opinion, on this. We have done and we will continue to do and support the project because we think it is good. We do believe that it will be one of the best that they've put together, and they've put together some really good projects. So that's our spiel from the bank, but any assistance that they can receive, I would emphasize at this point in time, knowing what we know today, is one more step toward a successful operation, because the last thing you want is an empty 4-story building on North Prince, and then what do you do? Okay. The other thing, from what I understand about the IRB, because your question is great, because it is the most confusing thing I've looked at. From the research that I've done on it, the IRB system that we have now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but part of it stems from the state not being a
anti-donation.
Yeah, anti-donation state. And so instead of just repealing the anti-donation law back in the late 50s, they created this IRB mess, okay? Sorry, I don't know if anybody was here who created this mess, but it just complicated. It would have been much easier just to go back and say, okay, we goofed up with the Constitution. We need to amend the Constitution and make this a donation state instead of an anti-donation state, and then we wouldn't have this problem. But that's where we are. And so we work with the processes and the tools that we have in order to help the customers that we have to be successful, and we use whatever means we can to get there, and this is one of those means that I think we can use. Any questions?
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I feel like this IRB is being used to offset current economic crisis. So for the next 20 years, the city will lose approximately $75,000 because of the current crisis. Are there not other funding devices in place now to help with this current crisis, such as the CARES Act money that the governor has given the cities?
Okay.
Can they not apply in each of the cities where they currently have a hotel to receive money
Yes.
to currently help so that we're not doing this 20 years later?
Sure, no, and that's a great question, a legitimate question, and I will tell you that all those avenues are being pursued and have been pursued. The difficulty with additional loans is the last thing a business that already has a lot of debt needs to survive is more debt.
But isn't this that the governor gave to the cities, aren't these going to be grants?
Okay. Yes, please.
It's not going to go very
Hi, my name is Sandra Taylor Sawyer. I'm the director of the Small Business Development Center at Clovis Community College. And to your question, the grants that the state has, through the CARES Act, that has recently been passed, and Clovis was blessed to get over $4 million, and that was really great. So thanks, Claire and Justin, for your hard work on that. Those monies, from what we have seen in the documents, the business has to be in existence prior to a certain time period.
No,
And
well, let me interrupt for just a second. I understand that portion of it, but I feel like the group that is requesting the IRB has multiple hotels that are currently operating across the state. So I feel like the kick in the gut, really, to this whole project is because the current hotels are not making any money. So in order to, I feel like we're pushing that problem off onto this IRB. So can we not help the current situation with these CARES Act grants? And then that would free up some cash to then infuse into this project rather than it becoming a burden on the city.
And the current CARES Act with the state would be limited to businesses that have their gross receipts is $2 million or less annually, and 50 or less employees. So, given those parameters, this particular project would not qualify. And if you look at what the federal government has done as well, through the CARES Act, through the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Grant, again, it wouldn't qualify because the business wasn't in existence at that time. And I can't, I'm sure probably a lot of hotels, a lot of businesses have applied for those monies. The grant money through the federal was $10,000 only.
Well,
if they
you had the PPP also.
and if they applied for the PPP, of course, all of that may not possibly be forgiven. All of the PP loan, that's a possibility.
Well, so my question is more tied to the funds that each of the cities received. Are they not allowed to apply for that?
And I don't believe that they would qualify
Okay.
for that because they're not an existing business for that particular.
Well, not this
This one.
project, but there are
Yes,
other
if they're with their other
hotels.
hotels within the community, yes, they would qualify for it.
Okay.
As long
So
as they
can
have, as
apply-
long as they have 50 or less employees and revenues of less
So
than 2.
when I read through the application, it listed all the hotels that people in the LLC own, in 6 different cities in New Mexico. I didn't count the number, but can they apply for monies in each 6 of these cities for each hotel? I mean, that's a lot of money. If,
I can't speak for the other communities, but they can apply for the funds within our community for the business located within our city limits.
Perrin, did you have something?
I was just going to say that she's right. We have multiple locations in other markets. We have applied for whatever we would qualify, but sometimes, well, one, the CARES money to the local communities is, just decided. The other is that goes to almost every business in that community, not just for hotels. So when Lordsburg or Deming or, some Portales would distribute that money, it wouldn't go to one hotel like it would all get dispersed, so you get maybe 10,000 or something like that, which is possibly not going to make that big of a difference. Plus, each hotel is owned by a different entity, so to cross that money would also not be, correct.
So the total abatement is only about $75,000 a year. And when you're looking at this large of a project, I guess, is that $75,000, if granted, makes that big of a difference when it comes down to the operations of the hotel?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question just for clarification? Is it on?
Yeah.
Do we not take into account the 35% PILT? So that would, I did the math, it looks like it would be actually about a $43,000 tax abatement per year, not $75,000. Is that not correct?
Sure.
I've just,
So the difference is actually the difference between the 75 and the 45, so $30,000 a year.
used the email that Chase had sent, so about 1.5 million plus the 180, then subtract the 800,000 for PILT.
Over 20 years.
Yeah, and then I divided that by 20 and got around 43.
So correct me if I'm wrong, so you're saying $30,000 is roughly per year the savings?
They would receive a tax credit of approximately $43,000 a year for 20 years.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and you're talking about the 35% PILT, so that would reduce it, you said, to 43,000 a year?
Correct.
For the next 20
years?
years?
The total abatement to around 700,000 or 800,000, and then I divided that by 20.
I can see in the discussion that it's kind of been difficult for some because one, setting a precedent, one, the first hotel that we've issued IRBs. But I also believe that we should look at the long term as well. Sure, it'll create 28 jobs, perhaps more later, I hope. But this is also a long-stay hotel. It'll help our partners, Cannon Air Force Base, and potential other contractors or other employees that might come to do some work here. They have a long-stay hotel. Sure, they're going to continue whether this is probably approved or not. COVID-19 has hit us hard, some of our businesses and small businesses. This IRB is legal under New Mexico law. My only concern is, as I said, setting precedent in the response potentially from the other hotel owners. But it also, thinking outside the box, could open the door for us for other avenues and other hotels that might want to relocate to Clovis. And looking at the $43,000 a year, and then the PILT, on the 35% PILT, I really, if we approve this, would like to see that go to the Economic Development Fund, because if it goes back to that fund, it's available funding that could help others in other potential projects that Chase might have down the road. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion.
I have one comment regarding where the funds go. Our LEDA funds aren't giving up any funds by this, so there's not any money coming out of our coffers. The potential money coming out of the funds that the city receives, maybe in a PILT, is impacting our general fund. It's impacting all sorts of other funds other than just the LEDA fund. So I can't support 100% of those funds coming back into our LEDA fund.
I also agree, because I think that the hotels receive, or there's the lodger's tax also, which more or less is an economic development tax. And so I do believe there already will be monies going into that type of project. So I also agree. I think the money should just go into the city general fund.
Mr. Chairman, may I make one statement to follow up on Mr. Mondragon's statement?
Sure.
So you mentioned the legality, and crossed my mind. I had talked to our bond counsel in the last couple of weeks, and he's very familiar with the statute and the law. And what he told me is there have been a few hotels that people have done this, but he's not certain that it is legal. There's never been a challenge to it, and there's been a few that have been that have used IRBs, but he did warn me that there is a potential statutory interpretation that hotels do not qualify, although it's never been challenged. So I thought I would make that point.
However, those IRBs are available for this particular project.
Correct.
And I concur with you that it has not been challenged.
So we have a motion to approve the IRB, or do you want to amend your motion, or?
I do, no, it wasn't a motion, it was just points that I wanted to make. As long as it goes to the city of Clovis in somehow. Of course, I'm in particular interested in, what we do for economic development here in the city of Clovis. So therefore, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we proceed and approve the IRB with the recommendation that the city commission, the mayor and the city commission consider the PIL go back to the city of Clovis. And I make a motion that we approve the IRB for the hotel partners and move forward.
Mr. Chairman, can I make one comment?
Sure.
Is it possible to have this IRB really associated with the extended stay aspect to limit maybe the precedence? Because I think that's the piece for me that sways whether this business has an extenuating circumstance, as you say. I think there's a greater good for the community in Cannon Air Force Base specifically. So, to support it, I think the fact that it's extended stay is a piece for me that's significant. So is it possible that as we approve it, that somehow is documented in the application or the process, this IRB was granted to an extended stay facility as much as it is to a hotel? Does that make any sense to consider an angle like that?
While it does make sense, I'm not sure if you can do it because it's being financed as a whole project. And Terry, is there a way to split that apart? I mean, as far as the finance package? No.
I'd like to hear from legal counsel on that.
I would have to defer to Mr. Alsop, our bond counsel, but I don't think so. I don't see any way that you could divide the two. But I can contact him and find out.
And I'm not suggesting to divide it and get that formal. I guess it's more of an application process that it's understood we're approving this IRB because it's associated with its business operations as extended stay. So if another hotel comes in and says, I heard you did an IRB to help with operating expense, and it gives us some way to differentiate. And we would always consider that because it's, it still is a possibility. But just some way to differentiate is all I'm suggesting.
And I guess I have one thought when it comes to precedents and setting precedents. And I believe Mr. Mondragon alluded to it earlier. Throughout history, things have changed. Statutes have changed, rules have changed, tools put into the toolbox have changed. And so, I mean, there's arguments that could be made. Businesses started before we even had the LEDA process set up locally within our municipality. And since the time that we've adopted that, businesses have taken advantage of it, whereas in the past prior to that, there wasn't that opportunity for other businesses. So just my thoughts kind of on setting precedents is that some things do change over time, and to say that it's an even playing field for everyone always isn't always going to be the case.
So we'll just tell them to come talk to you if they have any concerns.
They tend to do that anyways.
Mr. Chairman, can I amend my motion, if I may?
Can I make
I wanted to include, go ahead, Chase.
I think just something, a suggestion about the motion.
Right.
That we could move forward with a resolution for the bond, so that part can be put in place, the commission could approve it, if that could be in there, and then obviously the documents are going to go back to the IRB subcommittee and come back to you before they're finalized. So.
Okay, thank you, because while the discussion was going on, I thought about, I should have included So therefore, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Dinesh, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, the Dinesh and Perrin Kumar with Xenia LLC, approve for the 100% tax exemption for the property with a payment in lieu of taxes to the city in the amount of 35% to include the bond.
Mr. Chairman, may I make one more comment to follow up on your point? I think I could ask bond counsel, and I can't see any reason why we couldn't, but maybe make it a condition of the IRB that the extended stay portion of the hotel commence and be in operation. And if it's not for some reason, if they change the project or there's no longer an extended stay portion, then we could maybe remove their tax exempt status. And so I can ask bond counsel about that if that's maybe where you were going with that question.
I think that would be a good suggestion, to tie it to offering extended stay capabilities, and if they don't, then the tax abatement is, something like that might make sense. And I think, again, that differentiates this project versus any typical hotel that may come in.
And I believe that's something that once this is approved and we go back to negotiate what PILT and everything else looks like, that we can put that together as part of that agreement, if we legally can do that.
I just going to bring this up one more time, guys. We're doing a 20-year fix for potentially a 1-year problem. And it does help one of our local banks. But that COVID is going to cost us for the next 20 years. That's all. Thank you.
And we could consider that term as well. If you feel like it should be shorter, and if Mr. Mondragon's like a friendly amendment to his motion, that's something that could be considered is looking at that term.
I'll stay with my motion.
So do we have in the motion that we can move forward with the introduction of the resolution to the city commission?
I don't
Is that
think
part
I don't think I can include that, but I'll amend to include that.
Okay, because that way we can put that piece in place, which doesn't obligate the city, but allows everything to be negotiated and make sure everything's covered while we're doing
Correct.
that, basically.
Thank you, Chase.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
And if I may, for those that are on the line, please press *6 so that you can vote. Thank you.
Vince Tyson,
Yes.
Kevin Cass,
Yes.
Raymond Mondragon,
Yes?
Megan Paula,
Yes.
J.D. Gutierrez,
Yes.
Latrice Brooks,
Yes.
Brett Johnson,
No.
Gil Tarson,
Yes.
Justin Howalt.
Yes. All right. That motion carries.
Did you get Hoyt?
Wait.
He's on there, I think. He's
Hoyt,
on.
Hoyt Pattison.
I don't know if he's unmuted. He doesn't show unmuted.
Yeah, Hoyt, you would need to press *6 to unmute yourself. Please.
There he goes. He's unmuted now.
Hoyt, if you could.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. That motion carries. All right, moving on to agenda item number 6, the Economic Development Fund financial report. Currently, we have $2.38 million cash in the bank. 2 months in, so with the month ending in August. You have to bear with me. We have an actual revenues of $92,000. With a year-to-date that was for the month of August, with a year-to-date revenues of $183,000. Our expenditures for the month of August were $19,000, and a majority of that is actually with the mowing of the industrial park. Our year-to-date expenditures are a little bit over $21,000 for the year, for this fiscal year. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have regarding the Economic Development Fund itself.
Mr. Chairman, I have a regular question sort of on that. How has the gross receipts tax collection been during this COVID?
We've actually been very fortunate. Our gross receipts tax has stayed steady. We saw a dip in March, and then we saw it come back up in April's returns. But then in May and June, our gross receipts tax were solid. And so we internally start looking at that and saying, well, why throughout this period has our gross receipts tax remained relatively flat or even up a little bit? And we attribute it to folks are staying home, folks are shopping local. And so that's the importance to our local community and the dollars that we have to be able to invest back into our community when people do stay within our city and shop. And so I think that that's had a major impact on our local economy. And so we were strong coming into COVID, and so we were up coming into it a significant amount. And so we were able to hold that, obviously, through this time period. We will get our gross receipts returns coming for this, about September 15th is usually when we get those, the 15th of the month from the state, and so we'll just continue to monitor. But we've been relatively in the positive, so that's good.
So just comparison, do you know what the lodger's tax, what it has done, so we can see the effect?
Yeah, the lodger's tax has dropped. And so year-to-date, the budgeted versus the actuals for the last 2 months, we're down about $18,000 in lodger's tax.
And as a percentage, do you know what that is?
Not off the top of my head, no. And you're lucky I had that because we had lodger's tax last night.
I'm real impressed.
So.
Mr. Chairman, if anyone would like to have, our office did an economic impact analysis of the COVID-19, and also we did a analysis on the businesses in Clovis that received the PPP, and we have that report, and I'll be happy to share that with you all if you'd like to have a copy of that.
All right, moving on to the next agenda item, update on projects from quarterly report. Mr. Gentry.
Yes, I have Jim Glover on the line. He's going to go over real quickly on the branding initiative that we brought to you guys a while back. Turn it over to Jim.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear and see me?
Yes.
All right. Well, it's been sort of interesting sitting in and watching you guys from the wings here. But I just wanted to say that we are excited to have been working with the Clovis CIDC and the Chamber in the city to develop the new brand for Clovis. The thing about branding, it's all about perceptions. And what we found in our research is that from a outside looking in perspective, especially with military, your brand is not as strong, your brand stature of Clovis is not as strong as I would imagine you would like. But what was also sort of interesting to us is that even within your own community, your own residents, when asked about their thinking of living, working, retiring, and visiting your community, was not strong. We have something called an advocate score, and the numbers for the military were extremely negative, yet the numbers for Clovis residents were fairly fixed and low, like 1-2%. So it wasn't a big number. So what we created was a brand that talked about how Clovis, and we heard this from virtually everybody we met with, is a very friendly and welcoming community. And so that is essentially the brand positioning that we created, that you're all united to invite people to become part of the Clovis family and then really making a difference in people's lives. That is the brand essence, and that is what we hope will be used moving forward. We created a very detailed community branding primer that we shared, and I'm not sure if all of you have had an opportunity to read it, but when you dive into it, I think it's quite eye-opening as to people's thoughts, and there were literally more people taking the Clovis online branding survey in your community than any other city in New Mexico that we've worked with by far. So there was a lot of response, and it was also broken down carefully between both local residents and any military-related personnel and families in your community. So it separates it on both sides there so that you have a clear understanding of what's thought. And so there's also a brand action plan, and specifically within that plan, we identified 3 areas where the community working together can enhance its brand. One of them was through community engagement. The other one was through business and talent attraction, and lastly, through talent and visitor attraction. So we recommend that you take a look at the brand action plan in the economic development side, and keeping in mind that a brand is simply everything, that anything that you can do as a community, whether it be your organization, your commission, or CIDC, or the chamber, or schools, that anytime you change a perception in the positive direction, you have enhanced the brand in people's minds. And so we've laid out about 15 or 16 different elements within the brand action plan related to economic development specifically that will, over time, if implemented, continue to change people's perceptions in a positive way. And what we hope is from the brand ambassador score that we did, the benchmark, that in coming years, that score will continue to go up. And so as people, for instance, military, leave the base and move overseas, and somebody says, hey, I've got a choice between Cannon and someplace else, that person goes, hey, Cannon is a great place. Clovis is a great community. Right now, you're not getting that because there's things you need to deal with to change people's perceptions on the live, work, play, stay side of your community. But with the branding initiative, with everybody on board, you will start changing those perceptions. And so we're very excited that Clovis is taking the steps to deal with your brand, because it is important, as we like to say, if you're not driving your brand bus, somebody else is, the media is, the press, social media, and this is an opportunity to all get together to drive a common direction about how you are inviting people to be part of the Clovis family and definitely impacting in a positive way people's lives. That was it, Chase. I would take a question if there's any from the audience.
So most of you may have got an email. We've been pushing it out on social media. We have, I think is it Rachel? I think 4 taglines that have been selected, and we're taking votes on those right now. So that once we finish with that, we will identify that tagline and then move forward with hopefully with the second phase of the project. So, Rachel, can you go over those taglines?
Sure. So the 4 taglines are a place to call home, grow with us, promising possibilities, and you belong here, I believe is the 4th one. Is that right, Jim?
Yes.
So those are all up. If you go to clovisnm.org, you can vote for the one that you like the most, and that'll be open until September 14th.
So we're pushing it and actually boosting into the community through Facebook and other means. And so anybody that you know or you can forward and say, please vote. We're trying to get as many votes and want everybody's input that can be involved. And then we'll move forward with the different next phase.
Can you mind repeating those again? It was a little hard to hear.
Rachel, can you repeat those?
Yes, so the first one is a place to call home. The second one is grow with us. The third one is promising possibilities. And the 4th one is you belong here.
Thank you.
And if I might add just quickly, the next phase is what we call brand integration. And having a brand is one thing, but delivering on the brand promise as a community is another. And so what the brand integration phase is all about is really educating the community as to what the brand is about, getting everybody on board, and then working together continuously forever, because your brand will never end. It's like Nike turning off their brand tomorrow. They're not going to do that. Same thing with the community. Once it's understood and people that love what you love start knocking on the doors, such as visiting your GIS planning software, they're going to see a community that is receptive. They're going to see positive responses out there and images being shared by the community about what it is like to live, work, play, stay in Clovis, and that is going to attract people. So the next phase is very exciting. We've been dealing with a lot of communities in the state of New Mexico over the last 10 years with brand integration. And when a community gets on board and works together, it's really exciting to see the transformation, the enhancement in people's views of the community, and more knocking on the door. So you will have more businesses trying to relocate there, especially COVID. People want to get the heck out of Dodge and some of those big cities. And if they happen to like what you are offering in Clovis, and you are ready to embrace them and invite them into the community, I think you will see great results in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Chase, you have any other updates for us?
Yeah, so just real quick on projects. Since we've met last, which has been quite a while back, we've responded to a warehouse and distribution facility request for space for at least an 8,000 square foot building with loading docks. We provided them options on that. Solar North project, we're working with a company we've been for about a year. They're looking at, they think they're about 24 months out to be funded to build a project north of Clovis for a large solar array power distribution system. The Grady Wind project, moving forward with the client, they're finishing up their right-of-way, and we were on the phone with them the week before last, and that project is expected to move forward. That's Apex. If you don't know, I think that name's been out there. There's a meat packing facility that's not in this community, but it's adjacent community to us out in Melrose, and we're working with them on helping them through their incentive process along with the state of New Mexico. So it's a small project, but a big project for that community. We've been working also with a site consultant out of Dallas on looking for site locations for call centers or contact center. Obviously, we have a 35,000 square foot facility that's vacant at this moment, and we provide them all the site information and data on that, as well as a potential incentive package with that. And we haven't heard, I mean, they do these searches, they analyze, and they'll call you back as they move forward. And we hope that might be an opportunity. We had 4 PROs from the New Mexico Partnership that we responded to, which is Project Westing, Project Sunhouse, Project Rome, and Project Augustus. And some of those are manufacturing. One of them is a contact center, a call center, Project Rome. That would be 150 to 200 agents. We proposed the call center here, plug and play. That's what they're looking for. That's what we've got. And we've offered them, we've had a couple of additional responses that we've brought information back on that through the partnership. Obviously, we don't know the name of the company or who they are because of the way the process works with the state. One of the projects that we worked on, Project Augustus, I worked with Brad on land. It's a food processing and distribution company, 210,000 square foot building. They're looking at 150 to 200 trucks a day to go in and out of that facility on 40 acres. And so we were, you start looking at the requirements, and then you have to look at what will fit. So the industrial, based upon they can't be close to anything that would vibrate. So the industrial park's out, other land that the city owns is out. So then we had to start looking out for private property. We found a site that we think would fit them. We submitted that. It says it would be 135 to 150 employees, and so we do our best to fit into those little pockets that they require to make sure that we're in the game. And then obviously there may be other locations if they come to visit that we may have additional, but we try to make sure that we meet that, and we did find a site that we think would work pretty easily. We also, it's probably been 2 months back, went to a signing of a company, a solar manufacturing company that's looking at bringing their manufacturing to Clovis potentially as they finish the design and the development of their product. And we expect that project to come to Clovis at some point. One thing I want to commend Rachel on, and I'm going to turn this over to her. She has a few things. Clovis Economic Clovis Chamber, we established a Clovis Recovery Task Force in March. The key to that was to get information out and make sure we could respond to business needs. And we did a lot of surveys. We did a lot of activity. And a lot of that was Rachel. And she's our PR marketing manager for the Chamber and Clovis Economic Development. And she is a phenomenal person. And she's been putting updates out there at the beginning twice a day. Now it's more, I don't know what we're doing now, 3 times a week now. And you probably get tired of seeing emails from us, but we're trying to make sure we keep everybody on top of what's happening and make sure that they get in there when they need to get in there to apply for funding or project. I mean, there's a lot of information out there, and we also developed along with the recovery handbook that's been distributed to all the businesses to help them with reopening, and then we have a gentleman that's on board with us that if they want private consultations on what they need to do to stay safe in this environment or what they do with their employees, we have some consultants that are on board to help with that also. So I think we've been as proactive as we can. You think, Ernie? And we continue to try to meet those needs over, as things change over the months. Hopefully it's getting better now. With that, I turn it over to Rachel. She has a few things she's going to go over.
Thanks, Chase. So Clovis Economic Development has a few other projects that we have ongoing. The first one is our Gigabit City Marketing Project. We have been working with the Chamber and Plateau Internet to create a variety of marketing materials that are meant to promote Clovis's gigabit internet options as a way to attract businesses and people who work remotely or that need that type of tech capability. So far, we've come up with some messaging. We're working on a web page, and Plateau's marketing coordinator, Janine Fajardo, has been gathering some promotional videos for Clovis, or some footage to make promotional videos of Clovis. So she's been going around to businesses and different attractions and things. And then hopefully you've also seen our request for some home videos from locals, since it's been difficult to get, exciting events and things right now with all of the restrictions. Overall, the plan is to flood the internet with new content portraying Clovis in a positive way, and then hopefully bring people to our area for those gigabit capabilities. Moving on, we have also been working on a community readiness bioscience certification with the New Mexico Bioscience Authority. They have been helping communities evaluate our assets to determine whether their regulatory framework, their zoning, permitting, infrastructure, and facilities are suitable to attract bioscience businesses. We had put that on hold for a while. I think we were back in February or so is when we were talking to them, but we're back on track now and are hopefully going to have a town hall type informational meeting at the end of September. Next, we met back in July with the North American Intelligent Manufacturing Initiative for the Clean Energy Economy Roadmap meeting. Our group was one of 12 across New Mexico that worked to advise them about implementation of the 2018 New Mexico Energy Transition Act, so ETA. And Chase was the chair for our Eastern New Mexico region. So the ETA calls for New Mexico to transition to totally carbon-free electricity by 2045. So during that meeting, participants provided input for that roadmap to help connect NEMI with the community and to create new clean energy jobs. So overall, the two goals for that project, the first is to help transition the state smoothly to the ETA and be carbon-free by 2045. And the second is an economic development goal to use that to attract industry. And then lastly, we have been working with the city and the Chamber's Retail Committee to for a possible amendment to LEDA for retail. So as we're gearing up for the January 2021 legislative session, the CIDC and the Chamber sent out a survey to all New Mexico chambers and economic development organizations to get their thoughts on this and see if they'd be willing to join a team to help support this initiative. So far, we have 17 groups that have said that they would be willing to join. And in parallel, the city has been working with the Municipal League on a draft of that amendment. And when we shared that in that survey, all 23 respondents, even if they didn't want to sign up for the team, they did say that they were still in favor of that amendment. So we have been providing all of this info to the Chamber Execs Association, NMIDEA as well, and the team that we're setting up is going to discuss the ideas about this amendment to make sure we can garner support from everyone across the state. So that's moving forward as well. And that's all I have.
So with that, just real quickly, I'll go back over the Gigabit City Marketing Project. We're really excited about that. We think the first initiative is to look for low-hanging fruit, people that might have lived here that want to come back, especially due to COVID, they want to get in a smaller community. So we plan to target people that might have graduated from Clovis or went to college here, went to college in Portales, and those kind of things, and then how we can move that out into other markets, our tech industries, or work-from-home type initiatives. So we're meeting, it's been a little off the last month or so, but we're meeting probably a couple times, well, at least once every 2 weeks. And actually, Rachel and Janine are the ones that are spearheading the project on behalf of Clovis Economic and the Clovis Chamber. And so we hope that will be a very progressive opportunity to market and partner with our tech company, our largest and great company of Plateau. And we'd stand for any questions you want to have.
Thank you, Chase. Do we have any questions?
Mr. Howell, if you would, it might be good to expand on what the leader is, the 25% of the mayor would like to.
Thank you, Ms. Burrows. I was getting to that.
Oh, sorry. Great minds there.
Are there any questions for Chase? Seeing none, I'm going to take the liberty of having Mr. Morris, Mayor Morris, talk about the LEADA initiative that we are taking on, as well as potentially retail strategies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. It's great to be with you this morning. As you're still a very new mayor, there's a lot that I'm learning, so it's great to be able to sit in and witness this meeting this morning and learn a lot about what you do. So thank you, board members, for what you do. Incidentally, things that I'm learning, I would have thought that a 7:30 a.m. meeting would involve donuts. I guess that's not how you guys do it. That's okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
COVID, we're not allowed to.
Okay. Got it. Understood. Doggone COVID. And also sensing that we are at the end of the meeting and I'm standing between you and getting to work, I'll try and be brief, but Rachel did a great job of explaining something that we've been working on, and that is a resolution to amend the LEADA statute to allow a city our size to support retail as economic development. But very simply, a city that is larger than 35,000 in population cannot use the municipal LEADA funds to support retail as economic development. And I think, and the commission believes, as well as city management believes, that in light of COVID and the expected struggles that the service sector, in particular retail, will suffer over the next decade, and honestly, under normal circumstances, we believe that a community like ours should have the latitude to, tailor the use of municipal LEADA dollars to do what they need to in their own community in responding to the needs of their own community, and in particular, ours being out here on the east side of the state and very near the Texas border. I think of us as a retail hub, and or at least that we certainly should be. And I think that we need to make some moves to maintain and even bolster that position as a retail hub, and make sure that we're the community that the 60-mile radius is coming shopping with, and so forth. And so, as was mentioned, we did a resolution which we've got through the New Mexico Municipal League, and so now there's still work to be done, and including looking for who's going to sponsor it and carry it, and but we're hopeful that we can get something done there, and that would be good for our community and for economic development in our community. And somewhat related to that, Mr. Manager mentioned retail strategies. Last Thursday, the City Commission approved a contract with a company called Retail Strategies, which does research and then matchmaking with national retail and a community like ours. The contract involves Retail Strategies doing many things, including doing a lot of research and data crunching on our community to understand what we might be leaking to outside the community in terms of, money that could be spent here if we had the retail operations or services for folks to spend that money here. Also, a report done in order to understand what our capacity for recruiting is, so that we're able to recruit thoughtfully and intelligently and not recruit something that would cannibalize or interfere with existing business. And speaking of existing business, the contract and what Retail Strategies will do offers support for existing business as well, and has a downtown component as well. And so we're pretty excited about Retail Strategies. We think it's one piece in kind of what I was describing as I talked about LEDA, but that effort to maintain the position as a retail hub and hopefully keep more money spent here. More gross receipts dollars being collected here, but also recognizing the need and the reality that we can draw money in from outside the community with retail. And I would stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the group regarding the potential LEDA adjustment as well as?
And it's up to 25%.
And it's up to 25%. So what we've proposed is allowing our local LEDA dollars up to 25% to be used on retail recruitment. It's similar to what we do with industrial recruitment.
Would that be 25% annually? Did you put
Yes.
that in? So
Yes.
that it marks it just for that annual?
Yes.
I was reading that over, it didn't.
Does that include restaurants or just personal property retail?
No, that would include restaurants.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for good of the order? Seeing none. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, everybody. I realize it's been since December since we've met. However, we'll get back to our regular routine now that we're meeting regularly with all the rest of our committees, et cetera, throughout the city. So we'll get the next date and time and out to everybody for when our next quarterly meeting is if something doesn't come up between now and then. So thank you for your time this morning. I appreciate it. We're adjourned.